Okay, we'll bring the October 3rd City Council work meeting to order. Is there a motion on tonight's agenda?
I'll make a motion to adopt tonight's agenda.
I'll second.
Motion made and second. Any discussion? Hearing none. To the motion, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? That motion passes. Item 3 is the live barn contract for the ice arena. Jack.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The St. Francis Youth Hockey Association has requested the city contract with Live Barn Inc. to install a fully automated sports broadcasting system for the delivery of live and/or on-demand video and audio streaming to internet-connected devices. Live Barn is a video service that provides live streaming and on-demand replay of amateur and youth sports events. The Live Barn service is available in most ice arenas in the state. Access to the Live Barn services will be through paid subscriptions by the users. Comments regarding the contract have been provided in the packet by the city administrator and St. Francis Youth Hockey Association. In addition, council was sent an email response from the Live Barn representative as to their answers to some of these questions last Thursday. Item 1.5 and the entirety of item 6 in the contract may be problematic for the city if staff availability for marketing efforts would be limited. The city attorney representative Christine Benson is here tonight to answer any questions, along with Alex Goodwin and Cindy Evanson with the St. Francis Youth Hockey Association to address the contract request and answer questions council may have on this matter or any other arena concerns. For the proposed contract, there is no cost for the Live Barn installation. The city would not be responsible for the damage or malfunction of any equipment. Live Barn will repair or replace at its cost any malfunctioning components which are required. Staff is seeking direction from council as to the direction regarding this matter.
Okay. How do you want to proceed, Jack?
I think if we can let Alex and Cindy present just a brief overview of the Live Barn again to the council. There's not much information that we could get from them. Their website's not exactly informative as to how they function. They brought some handouts and they'll present their Live Barn request to the council, and then we'll go over any questions the council may have regarding the contract. Christina can answer those questions, and Alex and Cindy
Sounds like a
can
plan.
provide some backup information.
If you could state your names and your association.
Alex Goodwin with the St. Francis Youth Hockey Association.
I'm Cindy Evenson, St. Francis Youth Hockey Association.
Okay.
Cindy is our live barn expert at our association. She manages the Coon Rapids Ice Arena, so she has a lot of knowledge and understanding about how the system itself works.
We use it there. I'm the assistant manager at the rink, and we've had Live Barn, I think since 2020. I brought so when you sign up for Live Barn, they provide like a promotional packet that has handouts in it that you hand out. You can like put out on tables or your concessions. That just gives people a code to sign up, and then when they use this code, that whoever is associated with it, so the city, or if you have the association or the management company, whoever you decide, would then get a payback for all the subscriptions that come in. So it would kind of make up for any sort of like electrical fees that you're paying, or anything like that. And then they also provide some social media links, so you can just copy and paste. So the association could put it on their website. The management company could put it on if they have a website somewhere, or the city rink website. So that would be that promotion area. And then Live Barn itself is just an opportunity for families anywhere to be able to log in and watch a game either live or on demand. If they missed like their grandson's game or something like that, they'd be able to go back and watch it. And then for any games that shouldn't be televised, like if there was a special high school practice or something, there's an opportunity to actually like black it out, but you can still have it recorded. That way the coach could go back through with the code and run through and do like kind of a
So is there, I guess taking a half step back, Live Barn is a means of live streaming events at the arenas,
Yep.
so subscribers can watch it elsewhere.
Yep.
So that's, yeah, we've read the packet, the audience
Okay.
may not understand what we're talking about.
Yeah.
So just curious, is there one camera, multiple cameras, is there operators?
It's one camera, and it's usually mounted, so I've seen a couple different views, but like in Coon Rapids, ours is mounted at, center ice, like off the side. And Monday through Friday, it's just kind of a panoramic view. But then Friday night through Sunday, it actually will track the puck or any activity that's on the ice, so you can really see, and you can actually zoom in and out, like if you're, really wanted to see something.
Hmm.
So,
Okay.
Do the code, when people download the code, do they pay to watch it then? Is that how that works?
so there is a subscription fee, yes, they would pay for it.
And about how much does that run? Is it
Around
per,
$25 a month. It's very similar to like Netflix or HBO, those types of subscriptions.
okay, and it's not per game, like if you just
No,
wanted to
no,
watch
no.
one game, you couldn't do that?
And once you have subscribed, it's good for any Live Barn rink. So if you have a player that is in a tournament in Wisconsin and they have Live Barn, families would be able to log in and see it there too.
So predominantly, it's, the target audience is gonna be the hockey families.
Yep, and they do have, Live Barn is at other sports arenas too, but
How does this affect the high school games? Do the high school games usually not want this shown live?
I think that you could work with the athletic director about that. In Coon Rapids, ours are televised, so we don't block those out. We've never had a problem. We definitely could if they asked us to. When you work with Live Barn, they will tell you not to block anything out unless somebody asks you to block it out, and that's kind of what we've done at Coon Rapids, and it's worked really well.
So I read something on here that our attorney said that each entity that uses it would have to sign a release agreement. Is that a problem with Live Barn?
We don't do that in Coon Rapids, but
There's notices posted inside the lobby, and with Live Barn comes a monitor that would be placed in the lobby too. They just make sure to have the information that there's live recording going on in the building.
I think this day and age, everyone expects live recording anywhere you go, so.
You're being recorded no matter where you are. by
It's
somebody's
Almost
phone.
everywhere you go,
it's
so.
focused to the ice too, so it's not like they're recording the lobby or the bleachers, it's on the ice.
Yeah. Now, as far as the marketing, does Live Barn require social media posts, or just that one little statement, Live Barn, East Bethel, Minnesota?
So they don't require it, they do like you to do it. There actually might be some sort of a requirement, I'm not sure, I would have to look at the contract. But it is beneficial to everybody involved to market it, because you do get that payback. I wanna say it's quarterly, for any subscribers that sign up with your link. Do you wanna look at one of these?
Sure. Thank you.
Coon Rapids looks like it's just a page on their website.
Yeah, so we just have a link on our website for
Yeah,
just
so
kind of
that's-
advertising it.
It's like
Take
almost
5
near,
minutes
there's
to,
almost no effort for us to do,
Yeah.
so.
take 5 minutes to put it on there, and
Yeah.
then you don't have to
And they
change it.
provide everything, so it's just a copy and paste.
Yeah, so long as I think it's not a daily or every time there's a game post, Live Barn is recording this.
And the association would put it on their website too.
And tons of families consistently ask us, are we getting Live Barn?
Why
So
don't we-
it's a big ask.
Oh, I can imagine, yeah.
I think it's a great idea, actually. I'm a little concerned about a 6-year contract. Does the attorney know if they're allow that clause for termination in there?
Under the termination clause, as it's written, even if you terminate it at will, which you're allowed to do, they still maintain the 6 years exclusive rights. So let's say Live Barn has some security issues and you decide not to go with them and stop using them after a year, you can't use anyone else.
Like
For-
a non-compete.
Yes, for 6 years. I don't know if they're willing to negotiate it, but as it's written, there are a lot of legal concerns that I can go into detail if you'd like.
I think that's the only concern I have right there. And I don't know, maybe you guys can negotiate, maybe they'd be willing to negotiate a shorter timeframe. to see
Oh,
how
it says
works.
here they can only go as low as 5 years on the questions.
I read that, but I just thought maybe.
Well, I agree that's a long period of time. I can kind of understand why they would do that. There's investment. But at the same time, the city proper is not really the customer here. It's the hockey association and the high school. And to me, if they're comfortable with being locked into one service, then I think we respect that. So, and like they said, the scenes be almost exclusively used around the area anyway. You know, whether you call it monopoly or not, but it is what it is. So, so if they're willing to go on to 5 years, I would do the 5 year. But I understand where they're coming from. So it's just part of weighing the benefits of the service.
I have one more question. Do you know what the average revenue is once all this marketing, like how much does Coon Rapids get? How much does even a smaller community than Coon Rapids get?
That's a good question. I want to say we've gotten between $200 and $400 back each time. Just depends on,
Each time? What do you mean by
it's
each
quarterly.
each quarter?
We get check quarterly. I think the last time it was, did I send that to you? I think it was 426, but I could look and let you know tomorrow.
Great, thanks.
It's nominal.
Yeah, I mean,
It's not tens of thousands of dollars.
no, no.
Any more questions for these folks? Then I guess it's the contract you want to talk about, right?
Correct.
So,
Thank you, ladies.
Thank you.
thanks. I'm gonna go up and say I'm not gonna worry about the little bit of electricity. It's not worth trying to track it or meter it separately or do anything else, so I think that's a small contribution that we can make.
I agree. I thought, how are you gonna even figure that out?
You're not. What do you have on your plate? I'm curious.
Sure. So after Chris's initial review was kind of an overview. And so I spent more time on it this afternoon to just draw attention to the risks and liabilities for the city. I have no opinion either way. It's just what the contract says. Like you said, I don't know what they're willing to negotiate. So I'm just going to go through and say what the contract says and what your obligations and liabilities are for the city. So I'm going to add 1.3, some information there. The city is responsible for the cost and installation of a dedicated internet connection in addition to the electricity. Just looking at 1.5, you only get 30% of revenue for new subscriptions that use your unique code. So your revenue, if you are looking for comparisons, I would recommend that you ask who has recently joined Live Barn, because those who have had it for a while and they come here, they're probably not going to be getting new subscriptions. So if you're looking to manage costs, that's how that is read. For 1.7, the city is responsible for doing the blacking out as it reads. It sounds like you might have some sort of management contract for the facility, so you might want to discuss with them what that contract looks like and adding that obligation for them.
Can I interrupt for a second?
Mhm.
We have any of this in our packet?
No, this is new.
No.
This is a more detailed analysis of the contract.
It's in the contract.
But it's in the
though.
contract under 1.7.
Okay.
So that's going to be the city's responsibility, or whoever you have as a management company. I'm on to 1.8. The city restricting viewer access has some concerns if you choose to exercise that. I wouldn't recommend limiting any sort of public access because that creates issues about who you're limiting that to. So that clause is in there, but I'm just noting that if you choose to limit access, you would want to take caution in that. Under 1.10, Live Barn only holds the city harmless for injuries to Live Barn employees. There's no sort of indemnification for privacy issues and that kind of thing. Under 3.1, and this is what I was kind of mentioning earlier, they have exclusive rights for that 6 years, regardless of whether you exercise your option to leave the contract. And then 4.3, the city is responsible for notifying Live Barn as soon as you become aware of interruptions and malfunctions. So that's another responsibility on the city. The city needs to provide Live Barn under 4.4. City must provide Live Barn with a technically proficient person at the ice sheet from time to time. 5.1 is mentioned in Chris's comments. The city is responsible for posting and maintaining Live Barn's legal notices of broadcasting. So my concern there is if the city is responsible for those legal notices being up and something happens to them, where does that liability fall? Under 5.2, the contract says that you must update all agreements with users of the ice sheet with the Live Barn disclosure. Under 6.1, as noted in the email, the city is responsible for marketing Live Barn. Under 6.2, the city must provide a marketing contact for Live Barn, who Live Barn will train so that city staff can market Live Barn. City is responsible, under 6.3, apologies. City is responsible for putting Live Barn link on city website, and the affiliate associations are also required to put that on their websites. Under 6.4, the city is required to follow Live Barn on all of your social media. You're required to share social media posts if they tag you in them, and all of your affiliates are also required to follow Live Barn and share the social media content that your social media is tagged in. Under 7.9, this agreement is governed and venued in New York. So if you have any sort of legal issues that arise under this contract, you cannot litigate them in Minnesota. And under 7.1, the city is obligated to keep the contract confidential, but that would not be something that's allowed. And it does say in there that unless it's legally required to be disclosed. So I'm not sure what their expectation would be having that clause in there of us like notifying them that we're gonna disclose this, just something to discuss in negotiations. And then under Minnesota statute, you're required to have an audit provision in your contracts if they're using city money for it, which they're using city staff, city resources. So technically the city is paying them to provide this service if you don't get any commission. And then Minnesota government data practices provision is required to be in all of your contracts, and civil rights provisions. So that is what the contract requires as written. Oh, I had one more note from talking with Chris earlier. One of the concerns that I started looking into, and I can look into further, but I didn't want to spend too much time on it if it wasn't one of your concerns, having minors on the ice, what kind of consent parents would need to provide to broadcast them to anybody who has a subscription. Like I said, I didn't look at this very much. I don't know if it's a concern given the other waivers and stuff that are involved. But there was a Little League article that popped up, and Little League got sued because they were broadcasting the provisions and the kids' parents didn't consent to it. But if you sign this contract and let's say 5 kids say they don't want their image on there, I'm not sure what that would look like. But again, this is all stuff that we can potentially negotiate. These are just, as written, what the concerns are.
Okay, that's a lot of information.
Lot more.
What do you need from us? seems like there's a lot of things that haven't been discussed back and forth yet, so.
Yeah, these were reviews I think that Christine did today, so we
Okay.
weren't, had access to them, we're gonna review. She was gonna bring those up tonight to present those to council. It may be something that we want to take a further look at, respond back to Live Barn with our concerns and see what their comments are. So we can get some feedback from them and see if these would be negotiable, or if this is just a standard boilerplate contract that they don't really allow much deviation from.
Well, I have to believe if there are another Minnesota rinks that the Minnesota requirements must be on the contract. No, they're not on that Coon.
There are a lot of cities that handle this kind of thing purely administratively, and then the contract just kind of goes by, and we don't know, like, it sounds like they don't enforce, if Coon Rapids has these provisions, it sounds like they don't necessarily enforce them to the degree that the contract allows them, but that's a risk assessment to consider, is that's technically what the contract says.
So are there any of the, all those, call them the bigger issues on here that we want to discuss? There's no, I mean, I think you outlined about 20 different items. I don't think it's practical for us to discuss that. Is there anything big picture?
The main issues from the city side is the marketing requirements. We don't have any real staff to dedicate to a few of the things under item 6.0 and 1.5. That would be some additional costs or assignments that we would have to take on. Some of the other items that were listed too were some concerns that we had. We were just trying to get some legal clarification on. We did get a response back from Live Barn, but it was late Thursday and those were still being reviewed. I did send those out in an email from Mr. Petrino. I would recommend that we go forward with these other concerns and maybe have the city attorney talk directly to them to see what issues can be resolved and what can be negotiated.
Well, one thought on the marketing, just an option, instead of the city taking on those roles with the Youth Hockey Association, be able to do that instead. And provide a technical person or.
Yeah, that
Well,
was
with
my
the
concern.
the exception of, I think one of the requirements of her is making sure that we post things on all the social
All our
platforms.
live, yeah,
We don't
our
have-
live.
That's what I'm saying.
Right, but
If,
they don't, no
say,
one,
Fra-
no-
if
But they
they
don't have
take that
access.
responsibility and it, rather than the venue owner taking that responsibility to do that, it gets put, that responsibility is placed on the Youth Hockey Association. That'd be one thing that we could possibly negotiate.
I agree in concept, but I don't think we can have private citizens working on our social media
I'm not
platforms.
saying put it on our social media, not at all. It would
I
not
know,
be.
but I'm saying that's what the contract says.
I know.
If we can change the contract.
And we can change the contract
Okay,
and so that St. Francis would take that responsibility.
Okay.
Who are our users? It's St. Francis Youth Hockey, the high school, and is that it?
Well, there's a few other people that do rent ice. North Branch rents some from us occasionally, so it would be all the ice users, but the Youth Hockey Association and the high school would be 95% of our customer base.
Because we have to update them and keep everybody updated on what's going on, and I think my concerns are, well, the dedicated Wi-Fi, that's gonna cost some money.
Well, that'd be a
Yeah.
question if we have that or not already.
Yeah, there was a statement in the answer provided by Mr. Petrino, I believe is his name, that said we would have no cost in that. And they would run their own line into the facility.
I thought I read that.
So
So
that
that's
was,
negotiable.
yeah, that was in the information that was sent out Thursday on the reply that we got back from him, that we were looking for some comments. That was the big question I had, is we didn't want to do anything to have to really maintain a Wi-Fi system that would support this thing or an internet system, because if things went down, then, you know, or even if they do, regardless, we're still getting all the complaints. But according to what I read here.
Well, okay, I must have missed it somewhere.
It's in that email.
Yes.
But anyway, that dedicated Wi-Fi and, the fact that we have to report any interruptions immediately to Live Barn. And the technical aspects, but I guess
We would do that.
the city,
anyway,
well,
so.
the city wouldn't necessarily, I guess would be something we have to put on the management company, or,
Well,
I don't think there's a city person there every
I
hour
think the
that-
premise is if you know about the problem, make sure
You
you
let 'em.
call. I mean, I think it's all they want, so.
Could I ask Cindy Evanson to step up to the podium and maybe she can shed a little bit of light on how Coon Rapids addresses some of these concerns?
So, as far as the contract goes, our city attorney did review everything, and I believe they added the data. like
The data
those-
practices
The
yeah.
provision?
Minnesota stuff.
Okay.
So they just add that to all of our contracts that come
Mhm.
across. So there was a little bit of editing. As far as, so like traditionally in a rink, the manager would handle the social media, the blocking out, reporting if there's issues, any technical stuff. So really, I think working with Gibson Management would be like what I would recommend to the city. And this is a really well-known product, so Gibson should be well aware of what needs to happen with it if it's not working, or who to contact, things like that. So, what were your other concerns?
Do you want me to look at my list?
Marketing, what was the other?
I would ask how you handle the youth in Coon Rapids. Do you get releases?
No. So if there's a city program that somebody is registering for, there is an automatic release in that registration process. But for public skate, it's a public area. So there are big signs that are posted, and then we have some big floor flags that are in our lobby. And because people are used to seeing Live Barn in other rinks, it's more of a, if you don't have it, that's gonna stand out. Because that hockey skating world
Is used to
seeing
it.
Yeah. We did have some concerns initially with that, with skating school, for example. But if there is something that we feel, a coach wants to block out, it's very simple to do. But also you can still have it available if needed, with the code. So. And then as far as the marketing, our Coon Rapids Youth Hockey, they do promote Live Barn, but the high school doesn't. The high school doesn't. We have, AAA leagues that are there. Really, it's the city and the Youth Hockey Association that market it. And we've never been tagged in a social media post, so that's never come up. We would share it just because we we would like people to sign up, but.
And this, I know we're talking about the potential for St. Francis Youth Hockey to do the marketing. This contract is presented as just between the city and Live Barn?
It's likely that they would need some sort of representation to sign this. I'm not sure who at their organization would be responsible for signing it, but we would need to add a third party to this agreement.
wouldn't it be easier just to have them in a separate agreement with St. Francis Youth Hockey for the marketing? Or do you want it part of this? Then they're not part of
If they're willing to, so you're saying the city agree to this and then have them do that?
No, I mean, to me, there's two ways. Make St. Francis Youth Hockey a party to the agreement.
Mhm.
Or just keep it between the city and us and remove
Yeah.
everything the city's not willing to do, and then it's up to Live Barn to negotiate directly
Mhm.
with St. Francis Youth Hockey.
We can absolutely propose
marketing.
that.
So whichever, I don't know which is better position-wise for the city, but.
I mean,
I'm
personally,
just
I would
identifying
recommend
there's two
coming
ways of
back
doing it, so.
at them hard and showing like Little League just got sued for kids being broadcast without explicit permission from their parents. You know, we're not sure that we're actually gonna have enough revenue to offset city costs. Like, how can we have some sort of guarantee that these city costs are going to be covered? We would wanna remove the requirement and make it optional to share those social media things. We would say that the city is not responsible for notifying them, but they're, they can, it's optional. I don't see why the city should have to provide a technically proficient person to help them install their equipment.
So we did not provide it. I am the technical person, and they sent out a crew. They ran their own wires. They hooked everything up. They physically hung the TV monitor. They did everything. As far as the technical person goes, I'm the admin on, so I'm the one that adds the codes to block stuff out. I'm the one that would set up like a guest code if I wanted, to have somebody at the city like log in and see something.
So there is an expectation for city staff to be doing those things.
There is an expectation for the management to do it.
So does East Bethel have a management company?
Yes.
Okay, and do you know if they would be willing to do that? I think it would be helpful to see the contract we have with the management company to see if it's within their contract to add these provisions to what they're doing, if it's already, something that they're contracted to be doing, or if it would be considered something that you need to negotiate with them as well. I think that's where it's a little more
Yeah.
complicated.
Christina, would you review, you mentioned 9.1, there was an audit provision in there?
Yes. So, under Minnesota statute, when the city is paying someone for some sort of service, they are required to have this provision that they technically can be audited. And I think it's more, to kind of see where public money is going. So, worst case scenario, the city's spending a lot of money in staff time, management time, internet, et cetera. They're not getting any new subscription because everyone's already got Live Barn. So the city's paying them to put this service on, and this service is making a bunch of money in addition to that and is not incurring really any costs. So basically, unless you get any money back, you're paying them to make money off people who want to watch their kids. And so if the city's not making anything to recover those, you're paying them to provide a private service that they're charging people for. And that gets into concerns about, the public purpose expenditures. So if you're spending city money, city staff time for this program, and then they're charging people for it, and you're not getting any neutrality in that, then that could be something that they would audit to see how much is this person making off the city and the people watching it when the city's not getting any money back. That's worst case scenario. But that's not what I expect or anything, but that's like what you need to be, that's what the audit provision is for, is to say, okay, so we're looking at the books here, state auditor is, and it's not adding up. So that gives them, this requirement is in statute to have this audit provision so that the state auditor can go in there and say, what's going on?
So this issue, this hasn't been discussed at Live Barn yet?
No.
Okay.
Just time-wise, I spend about 15 minutes once a year setting up the blacked out dates. And it literally takes me about 15 minutes, and that's it. Otherwise, I mean, I had to actually like write down the admin website because I never go into it. It's just not a website that
Yep,
I use.
that you use
So
frequently.
it is not, it doesn't take time, it doesn't take very much time. And all of the equipment that they provide, if something breaks, they will replace it. So really, the only cost to the city is the electricity to run the monitor and then whatever internet you have. And I want to say that they did provide some sort of internet connection. I could be wrong, but I think.
Yeah, it
may
says
be
they have the
separate.
modem and stuff, but you have to install a specific,
A dedicated
a
line.
dedicated line for their feet, basically, so it's not Wi-Fi,
So
so it won't be disturbed.
we did, I know we didn't have a dedicated line.
Okay.
They just,
And that's helpful in negotiations for us to know.
And I'll try to get some additional clarification, but in that email that we sent out late Thursday afternoon,
Yeah, I don't have that, I apologize.
there's a copy of it on, I laid it on in front of your seat. But on the back page under 2.1, when they say we can go as low as 5 years, Live Barn assumes all the financial responsibility, and in parentheses, hardware, software, installation, internet, marketing, cloud cost. And in return is they asked for that we do not bring in another automated camera system during that time. So that needs to be cleared up too, because in one section it says we are responsible for that. And when I actually called this gentleman and notified him too, we have a very unique situation there with wired internet service. And that's internet to the building now is currently provided by Zayo, which is a municipal contract with Anoka County. It's only for public facilities. We'd probably have to work out something with Midco or whomever the service provider is for a separate internet line.
What did you say it's called? Minco?
Midco would probably be the current service provider for that area. But the building is currently now served, it's one of our 3 nodes in the city for the countywide system. It's run by Zayo, and it connects all the public buildings in Anoka County, plus it connects the city of Isani and the Anoka County Hennepin Community College in Cambridge and the city of Cambridge, so,
we also use Zayo, but we have Comcast as a backup.
okay.
So they may be using the Comcast.
Yeah, because I'm wondering if that internet provider is required to only provide it to public use, in which case this is not a public use if it's only
Yeah,
available through private.
It is only
Purchase.
required for public use now. There
Okay.
is a provision with Zayo that they originally said that they would consider wholesaling some internet service, but to my knowledge, they haven't done that, and that service has been in the ground now for approximately 10 years, 9 or 10 years. So that's another unique thing that would have to be worked out on this.
So, again, we're not gonna get up through all these individual things. What direction do you want from council tonight? Is there any other matters, or issues on this?
I guess because I'm gonna be negotiating, or Chris is, with Todd, are you comfortable with us taking that approach of none of this, like, we don't want to be required to do these things, we want it to be optional?
Well, I think we made it clear that the electricity part of it's fine.
Yeah.
I think we're all in agreement that the marketing aspect is not something that should be required of the city, other than posting on our city website. So, however, the negotiations get to those endpoints, I think in those matters, that's fine.
And you're okay with the 5 years?
Personally, that's what I said.
Okay.
You know, if they,
I
that's part of
prefer 5.
negotiation. so.
Okay.
I mean, I understand, it's like having a TV rights contract, basically, you know, they don't do it for 1 year, it's a little bit longer, so there's a lot of investment.
And if you can clarify if we have to put the dedicated line in, or, I think the 2.1 is addressing something different than the 1.3.
Yeah, it sounds like this is probably a boilerplate, and Hopefully, it's helpful that knowing that we have an individual that's already reaching out, that's helpful as far as the contracts I've worked on, and indicating that and indicating the flexibility that they provide for Coon Rapids is helpful to know. So I think that's, and then the big things that I'm concerned about is who's gonna be liable if a parent sues. I don't want the city to be liable. And as your attorney, I feel like that's one of my things that is that something that you guys don't want that liability, right?
Well, I would think since it's their service that they are providing, they should be.
So we'll add some sort of indemnification provision in there. Because right now, as it's written, there is not any sort of indemnification for the city if anything like that is presented.
I totally understand where you're coming from, but you have to remember the difference between Little League and hockey is hockey, you're in an arena, Little League, you're in a field, and there's probably multiple entrances. At East Bethel, there's one entrance.
Well, this was specifically for kids who were playing, and that's who, because the parents didn't sign the waiver, and I don't know what it's like. I haven't looked into it, but if that's something that you want me to look into, I can spend time doing that. It was a parent whose child was playing the game, and they started live streaming it because it was like the playoffs or something. And there are weird situations with kids and domestic abuse stuff, and city data practices gets quirky with all of that stuff and all of the protections if there's a child who's been removed from an abusive situation, foster care, who even has the right to sign away this person's, just, we want that liability to be on Live Barn, not you guys. So that's helpful, and I appreciate that feedback, and I can work with Chris on drafting something and presenting it back to them.
I personally, the sign posting to me covers it.
Okay.
Alex, I think the high school players have to waive that for any sport they're in, because any sports can be televised in high school, so.
Yeah, and
And a lot of
so is it the Minnesota
associations-
High School League who they're affiliated with? The high school, when they play at the rink, is it through MSH? So they have something on their website that prevents exclusive use of broadcasting in case there's some sort of game that they would televise. So that's something that we'll need to look into as well.
Yeah, that's pretty common for sectionals and stuff like that,
Yeah.
at the state high school league, but, and I don't know if the youth hockey has it, but I know a lot of youth associations also have waivers that parents have to sign that their kids can be used for promotional information, so. So my question then is, if that's the case, and if St. Francis has that waiver, can we consider that in your judgment on whether?
On indemnification, yeah.
So
So,
if we can get a copy of that somehow.
yeah.
Does it record open skates
It would
unless you blocked it?
yeah.
So you said that takes you 15 minutes, or we can talk about that later. It would just be helpful to get your perspective on the staff time to present to the management company to see what kind of tasks would be added, just administratively.
I've spent more time talking to you guys
Yeah.
about it than I
Cool.
have with city staff time, so. But I get it, like, I understand your concerns. When we first started, it was a big discussion. It took a while, to.
No, I think it's a great thing. We should get it on as soon as we can, but we just gotta get through these things. In terms of tonight, are there any other significant issues with this contract that you'd like get the city council's consensus with?
I think we've gotten enough detail from you to be able to negotiate with them and hopefully be able to bring something back to you guys finalized before we come back.
Yeah? Anything else on this?
That's all I have.
All right. Thank you for both for being here tonight, so keep in contact with Jack, we'll keep this thing rolling, so. Okay, item 4 is electrical inspection service contract.
Prior to July 20th, 2011, all electrical inspections in the city were through the Minnesota Department of Labor and Industry. A change in regulations relating to electrical inspections allowed East Bethel the option of contracting with an independent inspector or the DLI for this service. The independent contractual option allowed the city to recover a percentage of the scheduled fees for these permits, work with a local inspector that could hopefully provide the same-day inspections and ensure continuity of inspectors for the service. Brian Nelson, an East Bethel resident, was the city's electrical inspector and served in this capacity from 2011 to 2018. The city of East Bethel then contracted electrical inspections to Sloth Inspections located in Andover since 2018. As independently contracting this service has experienced increased costs and the Department of Labor and Industry has improved their performance in this area, the difference between the two services is equalized and council is requested to evaluate their choices in this matter. The advantage of contracting the electrical inspection service with an independent contractor are and were, the city retains 20% of the permit revenue to cover the administrative costs for this services. The disadvantage of contracting the electrical inspection service with an independent contractor is sometimes there is confusion on who to contact with questions for inspections and the process itself, either the state or the independent contractor. Also, costs to residents have increased for permits using this service over what the state costs are. Scheduling inspection is currently penciled in and limited to 2 days a week, with the electrical inspector open to working slots in if other times open up in their schedule, and the financial incentives for the city have been minimized. The advantages of going with the state for the inspection are the administration of the entire process is no longer a responsibility or a cost to the city. Electrical questions, permits, and inspections are in one place for contractors and residents. Permit costs would now be lower for contractors and residents. And with surrounding cities and counties using the same services, there may be advantages and efficiencies in the scheduling. The disadvantages of contracting with the Department of Labor and Industry are there would be an annual loss of revenue in the amount of approximately $5,600 per year to the city, and there would be some initial confusion with the transition to a new service. In summary, there seems to be no additional convenience or savings to the residents, city, or contractors that the independent contractors once provided. Blaine, Spring Lake Park, Columbus, St. Francis, Ham Lake, Oak Grove, Bethel, and Linwood use the state for electrical permitting. Of the 21 cities in Anoka County, only 7 contract with an independent inspector at this time. As the previous electrical inspector was a local resident, inspections were available 4 to 5 business days per week, with same-day inspections always a possibility. Since transitioning from Brian Nelson to Sloth Inspection, permit inspection scheduling can be an issue as inspection times are only definitely available 2 days per week, and these days are Tuesdays and Thursdays. As certain other city permits cannot be issued until electrical inspections have been completed, this has delayed the issuance of those permits that are contingent on this sequence. The contract with Sloth Inspections may be terminated with or without cause by either party with 30 days written notice. Mr. Sloth has been engaged in discussions with the city regarding this matter, and he has no preference either way on which way the city goes. Inspection fees for the independent contract have added a minimum of $10 more per inspection over the state charges for residential electrical permits. Keep in mind that there's an inspection, though, at the beginning and the end, so this would be a $20 increase. The increase in cost to cover inflationary expenses has not come up with any additional benefits to residents and contractors. The impact of the new fee schedule adopted by the city on June 13, 2022, along with increases in percentages paid to the electrical inspector, has resulted in less revenue to the city. Over a 5-year average, the city's portion of the fees per year for electrical permits has been $6,600. During the 3-month period since the new fee schedule has been in place, the city's revenue for fees is projected to decrease to $5,600 per year, or a reduction of $1,000 on an annual basis. Staff estimates that each electrical permit currently issued requires an average of 30 minutes per permit to process from application to final billing. Approximately 1 permit per day is issued, and administration costs are estimated to be $5,100 a year. Staff is seeking direction from City Council regarding this matter, whether to consider using the state as their electrical inspector or continuing our contract with Sloth Inspections.
Jack, just curious, why are we considering this tonight? Is there something that triggered this, or?
We had some issues regarding the existing contract, which were worked out. But, again, it's an administrative issue, and we've also had a few discussions with contractors around that have said there's been a few issues in getting inspections scheduled in a timely manner, even though they do the 2 days a week. But, for instance, if it's a Thursday and somebody needs an inspection done on a Friday and they can't get it, it may be till the next Tuesday until they can get an electrical inspection. Certain of our permits issued, like septic system finals, are contingent on the electrical inspection. And framing is another one that's big, that's contingent on electrical inspection. So if you need inspection on a framing permit, then you call it in on Friday and you can't get it till Tuesday, you may have to wait 3 or 4 days to start your drywall work. So we're coming to the point now where the services are equalizing, and we're just trying to evaluate which is gonna be best for the city.
Are we sure that, I'm sorry.
I was gonna say, you're
Are
gonna
we
say,
sure
same
the
thing, sure the
state
state's
is-
gonna do it.
Yeah, exactly. Are we
Yeah.
sure the state can provide better service?
That's a good question. Now, I've talked to 2 contractors, and they both said the state's performance has improved. And they said, in their opinion, it was easier to work with the state now than it was with an independent inspector.
I'd like to go with whatever's best for our contractors and our consumers, but we don't have any history to base that on.
Well, the one, and I talked to Jack earlier about, I mean, one of the concerns I had was, and I don't know how much of a concern it is that if we had an issue and had to go back, even a year or so and contact the inspector and ask them what was going on, what's easier to do with the state inspector system or with our independent contractor who only has a few inspectors on their staff? So, I mean, I don't know if follow-up's a big issue with these inspectors. I don't know if it is or not, so.
The only way that follow-up has been is if there have been permits pulled and an initial inspection done and the project has never been finalized. So, we've had issues with that and come back and the final's done 18 months later, and then we get a bill for the final inspection. This is not really directly related, but this is one of the issues we've run into. So we get a bill for a final inspection. It's outside of another budget year. It creates some accounting problems. But, the big question is, will the service actually be improved? And that's truly an unknown. Just from what we're looking at, from what I presented, are just some issues, advantages and disadvantages using both, and see if it's a matter worthy of consideration and where we want to go with this.
Has Sloth been good at, if you schedule on a Friday, they've been good about getting them in on the following Tuesday? Or has there been problems there too with, no, we can't get you in on Tuesday, you gotta wait till 2 weeks from now?
I think he's improved quite a bit from when he first started.
Because this contract's not very old. I remember doing this in the summer.
Well, yeah, we changed
We
the fee
changed
schedule. We
changed the fee schedule, yep.
Now, in all fairness, we were greatly spoiled by our previous independent electrical contractor, Mr. Nelson, because he lived here in East Bethel. And he would make special exceptions or special arrangements in his schedule, either first thing in the morning or last thing in the evening. So you could get fairly close to same-day inspections if you called him in time. He was very easy to work with, and, he had a stake, he was a stakeholder in the city and had a reason to service our residents. Not that Mr. Sloth has been a bad inspector, no, that's not the case. As far as your question, Wanda, I cannot answer that specifically, but I've heard sometimes where, it's harder to get them than it was Mr. Nelson, and that's what we're kind of basing this on. And a couple of the contractors that I did talk to did say that they'd had good performance with the state in getting their inspection scheduled and taken care of.
I mean, I had electrical inspection done for my shop and used Sloth, and I knew it was like only Tuesday and Thursdays they did
Yeah.
inspections. And so it was Thursday morning, I filled in the form and he was there at 1 o'clock on that day.
On that
So,
same
which
day.
I totally surprised. I thought it'd be a week out, and they were there. So that's only one little snippet, but that's my experience with that, so. And I don't know if does the state do it online too?
Yes,
They
yeah,
do?
they-
Okay.
they're fully
But
online.
it was a nice system they have to set it up, so.
And,
I'm
you know,
thinking your name might have had something to do with that.
No,
Yeah.
no way, it was, cause it was online, they didn't know. It literally, I submitted the form and it said, we'll be there at 1 o'clock, or whatever it said. Wow, so. And they called before they came out and everything, so it's kinda nice, so. My experience with Sloth was good, no matter how small it is.
but I'm bringing this up as it seems like some of the differences between the two are getting more equalized now. And again, we're trying to look out for what's best for the residents. This isn't a decision we're looking to say, yes, we want to go with the state or we want to go with Mr. Sloth. This is just for your information and to kind of get direction on where we want to go with it. If we want to wait a while or do nothing, that's the option too.
Have we talked to Sloth about adding an additional day?
We talked to Andy and he said he would try to work some other times in if he could within his existing schedule, but he's doing like about.
And it's not just one person, they have like,
They three,
I think 4 or 5
Yeah, they
different
got 4 or
inspectors.
5 people on staff, but they do probably about 10 or 12 cities. Now, here's the other thing too, though. If we did go with the state, Andy's also a state inspector. So if we did go with the state, Andy would probably be the inspector for East Bethel.
but bottom line is if we go with the state, our revenue goes down, but our costs go down.
That's correct.
So
And
it looked like it's neutral both ways.
it would
Let's do
be.
it.
Like I say, just the revenue we anticipate getting with the new fee schedule is $5,600 a year. Our costs for doing this are approximately $5,100 a year.
Well, it might free up some time for some other things that need to be done.
Well, it does, and sometimes these inspections, the time devoted for the scheduling takes longer, especially if somebody comes to the counter and has a lot of questions that we have to answer. Sometimes since we're dealing with the independent inspector, we have to try to get him or call somebody at the state to get some answers on it. So sometimes they can take quite a while, but the 30 minutes is a kind of a conservative time because that goes from the application to the processing, to the tracking, to the entering in permit works, the final billing and any financial or audit stuff that goes once it's done.
And if it's cheaper for the residents using the state and it's gonna be the same guy, I'd say go with the state. That's a no-brainer almost.
Well, and that's, I think that's what we're trying to
Yeah.
figure out, what's a better
Yeah.
service, and so you weigh that $10, or they're gonna get a better service, which we don't have a feel for either, so.
What's Andy's contract, 1 year, is that a 1-year contract?
Andy's?
What,
with
the
state?
contract you're running with them right now, with Andy?
Oh, it's a contract, we can cancel, either party can cancel.
No, but I mean, how
30-day
long do you
notice.
run it, usually for a year?
3 years.
3 years,
Yes.
okay.
Well, we really don't have a lot to go on to make any decisions.
Does staff have a recommendation?
Staff wants to know how you want to proceed, if you want to. No, let me clarify
That's
that
called
too.
punting.
If you want us to try to gather some more information so we could probably make a better comparison, or if you say we're satisfied for now and we'll reevaluate this again in another year.
I think, finding out if they can add another day, you know? I mean, Tuesdays, Thursdays seem reasonable.
No, they're not.
And I know contractors aren't always the best planners, and if they know inspections are Tuesdays and Thursdays.
It doesn't work like that,
I
Steve.
know it doesn't work like that.
It doesn't matter on a contractor planning, sometimes the schedule just happens, and it does not work
Right.
to wait for 2 days
Yeah.
for an inspection, when you could get it Tuesday, Monday, Wednesday, Friday, or 5 days a week from the state.
Does the state have better service? Do you know?
I don't know. I personally don't have any
Dealings with
Any
them?
dealing with that. That's an
You know-
electrical contractor that sets it up. I tell them when to show up and
Yeah, I mean,
I
if this
can-
was pre-COVID, I would say the state's gonna be better service. My concern right now is with everything, the way things are with staffing, I mean, does the state even have the staffing to provide that kind of response on a daily? We don't know that.
We don't, but we can find out.
Maybe
There's,
we find out.
there's several
We can
local
talk to them.
electrical contractors that,
Well,
Could-
that's
could be
the other thing, too,
interviewed
If we
and-
talk to any contractors, get their opinion, you know.
Yeah.
so-
Electrical contractors.
electrical.
Electrical.
They do the day-to-day stuff.
So that would be some input too.
Further discussion to be had.
Recommendation from staff, once the questions are answered, all that. Okay, anything else on this item? All right, moving on to City Hall security upgrades.
Thank you, Steve. City Council approved an access control system for the City Hall office areas on July 26, 2021. The system provides city employees and approved personnel secured access to this portion of the building through the use of electronic key cards. The doors remain locked to all other persons, greatly improving the security of employees and protection of city property. This system was installed in 2021 by Summit Fire Protection Systems at a cost of $6,240. In conjunction with the discussion of electronic locks, ballistic glass coverings for the receptionists and building permit windows were also reviewed as possible security upgrades. Solicitation of quotes for this work was delayed due to issues of obtaining material quotes for this project and contractor schedules. City contracted 3 general contractors for proposals for this service, and their bid prices were included in your packet, with the lowest being $23,833.75. Essentially, staff this is another one we're seeking direction as to how you want to proceed on this matter. You know, recognizing that there is no totally foolproof means of providing protection. This may be something we want to discuss further, but this is just a finalization of what we discussed before when we talked about security upgrades.
So,
Can I ask
go ahead.
Do those windows need to be that big?
Actually, they were reduced in size. They could probably be cut down quite a bit, but
Would that cut down our costs quite a bit?
that would cut down those costs significantly if you cut it down to like a 4x4 area.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know that those windows, is there a direct function that I'm missing of those windows needing to be that big?
The only thing that I can see, it just makes the areas just seem more open, but that's,
And it's, this one especially, I mean, if you
Yeah.
close this one off, it's gonna look like a little dungeon in there, I realize that. But when you're talking $23,000 and maybe we could do it for half of, or
Yeah.
less than half of that if you go 4x4s.
well, and just as another means of kind of looking at what things are going on, we have contacted some of our local cities. Responses have been limited from them, but Ham Lake and Oak Grove and Isani have not considered the installation of this as a security measure. Andover has not either, so we still hopefully to get some other responses back from Blaine, Cambridge.
Cambridge cut their size of their windows down, like in their DMV section.
Yeah, that would be the county.
Oh, that's the
Yeah,
county
yeah.
building.
But of course, the county has the metal detectors before you can
Yeah,
actually
before you
enter the
get in
building.
there.
Just like Anoka County has the metal detectors. Most of this stuff that you see nowadays is in police departments, the ballistic glass, and it hasn't been really a function of City Hall. Granted, it would provide protection, and Steve and I were talking about this the other day. Let's say you had an active shooter that entered the building and wanted to come in and shoot up City Hall. Even if the ballistic glass was in place, all they'd have to do was walk over and shoot the door lock and come right on in. So while it does offer some protection, it doesn't offer full security.
I mean, I'm gonna raise this from another aspect. I mean, I was getting ready to ask, when are we taking down
Glass?
the glass that we put up for COVID? So we can open up these windows again and be a service organization, so it's, and now we're talking about putting solid glass there, so it's like going the opposite way I thought this was gonna be going.
Most places that have put up the COVID security stuff, which is essentially the plexiglass, have left it up. I think there's still some comfort level among staff that this is a protection, it's a health protection, it has nothing to do with safety from somebody that's intent on doing a shooting, but it is a very good health protection, because a lot of discussions up there are close up. You're two people right across from the counter's 2 feet wide, so I think they feel very comfortable that's still in place, and probably would like to see that remain up there for the time being anyway.
That answers that.
So just to clarify, the 23.8, that's for both these?
Correct.
So that's about 12,000 or
Yeah.
under 12,000, 11,900, I don't know. But that still seems like a very sizable cost. And do we have the demand or reasoning for it besides the possibility of someone?
No, there's nothing that we've found out there that says, the statistical probability of this is gonna happen at your facility is 1% or whatever. It's just one of those things, it may never happen, and it could happen tomorrow, who knows? It's just like,
Have our employees expressed concern that they would like bulletproof glass?
there have been a few that thought it might be a good idea, but again, I don't know that they looked at every aspect of it to recognize that even if it's there, it doesn't offer total security. And the
I
security,
mean, the door lock system we put on, primary purpose is so people don't
Yeah.
enter areas.
Yeah.
Right, and most of that is either unintentionally or intentionally just going back there and talk to someone. We don't want someone to do that. This is taking it to a
Yeah.
whole nother level by trying to provide physical protection to employees. And so I think, the question is, what's the threat level? I mean, was it?
Is it warranted?
It just seems like it's trying to protect for every possible outcome.
no,
And again, it can't be to protect the office staff from someone coming in and shooting the place up, because the whole place
Yeah.
is made out of paperboard, and the
Mhm.
bullet's gonna go right through the walls. It's not a bulletproof place, so. I mean, I know it provides a little bit of probably personal security with people working behind it.
Peace of mind.
But at the same time, it's also adds a level of inconvenience to customers that come to our windows. And not insignificant either, so.
I know it's harder to hear through, it's harder to talk through.
It's
You
harder
go-
to communicate through.
Yeah.
and
You go to
and it's
Anoka
impersonal.
County and go, like to get your gun permit. I mean, that's all bulletproof and you've gotta shove your
Yeah.
stuff in that little drawer and it's,
Well, but
you can't hear anything.
But think about,
That's
it's
right
a
where it
gun
is.
permit.
Yeah,
It's
right where it
okay,
is, it's
where it
rightful
is.
so.
Yeah,
I mean,
so
I'm not saying that's not right, I'm just saying,
These are customer
do we have
service
the
windows.
do we have the same need? I don't believe so.
I don't think it's warranted. I was not in favor of the doors anyway, so, I would be in favor of this.
You weren't in favor of the doors?
No?
Well, the doors needed, because we had cases where contractors walk in and stuff like that, but, and certainly the entry doors, but. I think this is not needed.
I think it's overkill, personally.
Absolutely.
Got enough consensus?
I have enough direction, thank you.
Okay, on to item 6, speed limit postings on 241st Avenue.
The city has received 2 complaints regarding speeding on 241st Avenue west of Trunk Highway 65. There is no posted speed limit on this section of the road. If there is no posted speed limit, the allowable speeds default to 55 miles per hour. As a result of these complaints, the city radar unit was placed on 241st Avenue from September 2nd through September 9th to collect data on westbound traffic. The total vehicle count ranged from 468 to 691 vehicles per day during that time period. Average daily speeds were between 27 and 29 miles an hour. Each day, approximately 30% of the vehicles exceeded 30 miles an hour, with the majority of those within 31 to 35 miles per hour. The results are graphically summarized in your attachments in your packet, and I will display them up here on the screen if you have any questions. In 2007, the City of East Bethel adopted the changes to Minnesota Statutes 169.14 that allows cities to set a 30-mile-per-hour speed limit in rural neighborhoods where homes or structures are spaced at an average of more than 300 feet apart for a distance of 1/4 mile or more. The City of East Bethel developed a map to identify which city streets would qualify based on the new changes. This is shown in attachment 1 of your packet. 241st Avenue west of Johnson Street was included in these findings and could be posted at 30 miles per hour. The material cost for the posting of this section of road would not exceed $150. Staff is seeking direction from council as to this matter and if the 30-mile-per-hour speed limit posting should be considered and included for approval on the October 10th council meeting.
So basically, we're just posting a sign.
We'll be posting 2 signs, one for westbound and one for
One for the
eastbound
eastbound.
traffic.
Do you have to do it eastbound if it's there's no through traffic?
No, but the traffic coming back would need to notify what the speed is too, because.
Well, my point is, if they got in and knew it was 30, doesn't change till they get out, you legally have to do it both
You have to
directions.
do it both directions.
Where would you put the sign then?
One of the signs could be put anywhere along the right of way around Johnson Street. There are no homes in there. The city has the pump station entrance, which it could be placed there for the westbound traffic, which would be approximately in this location right here. The eastbound traffic sign could be posted right in the curve where 241st changed to Skylark Drive, because the city does own a piece of property there. That eliminates the problem of putting signs in people's yards or in the right of way in front of their yard.
Yeah, I mean, I know that's a small issue, but adding another sign the other direction, I just think of the aspect of people don't want signs in their yards, signs clutter.
Yeah.
And if you think of an example, like one of these other roads, that's a cul-de-sac, one road
Yeah.
in. You're not gonna put a sign on
No,
traffic facing out, so it's how long you do it, I guess, but.
well, I think you would probably need to, just to make certain that it was known. I think if you just did it one way and assumed that people would recognize that, I don't know. I'd have to check, and we could see if that is legally enforceable in that direction.
I'm just thinking of a
Yeah.
way of minimizing
Yeah.
signs, so we have so many signs already.
Does the data really say that we need a sign there? Because I looked at those speeds and there were like very few that even went over 30 miles an hour, even though, and I thought if it's even a somewhat semi-residential area, the speed limit through the state is automatically 30 miles an hour, whether it's posted or not.
Well, let me see.
Do we have peak? You didn't have, there's no peaks on there.
Here is the neighborhood. This is Johnson Street. We couldn't post anything here because there's no residents. But you have quite a few residents here, and you have a feeder street, Fillmore Street coming out, Pierce Path coming out. There's gonna be another street coming out. The traffic is going to increase on this street, but if you go back and look at the graphs, these are the daily counts for the week. For that Friday, September the 2nd, you had 573 vehicles. Of that, 180 were speeding. Now, you go back, if you just take average speeds and
And
things like that.
speeding is,
Over 30 miles an hour.
okay.
And here's the counts for the rest of the day, so you can see, we had a high count, 2 high counts of over 200, or approximately 30% of the traffic was exceeding what would be the posted speed limit. Now, if we have an issue there with speeding, we can't enforce it because there's no posted speed limit,
Yeah.
unless they're driving over 55
And it
miles an
results,
hour.
and reverse the state speed limit of 55, right?
Correct. So the real reason for posting is to be able to enforce the speed limit. So if there are people that are in an area which probably should be 30 miles an hour and are driving 40 or 45, they can be ticketed.
I think there's a school bus that stops on there too.
Oh.
There's two stops
Yeah.
there. There's the back
There's
and then right at Johnson
multiple
Street, they
stops.
stop.
Well, I think the other objective of having a sign is to people understand it is 30.
Yeah.
Because, and especially in that stretch of road, because it's straight, you know, you don't, people drive usually to how they feel the road. If it's a nice straight run, they're just gonna go faster, you know,
Oh,
and.
I could give you about 37 years of
Oh, I
history
bet.
on this road.
Yeah, but I'm not saying that sometimes people, it just happens naturally. And then if you have a road that has a center line painted, then you're thinking it's like 50-something, because they put a center line. We have roads that aren't,
Yeah.
you know?
Do you know what determines the speed on a road? Is the road conditions themselves.
Right.
If it's a straight section of road, people are gonna drive faster.
But if we want, I don't know if anyone else looks at it any different. This is a residential road.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's more of a collector road, and we shouldn't, on residential roads, we shouldn't be encouraging higher speeds. We should be encouraging safer speeds, so,
I have no problem seeing this sign put up.
yeah. this
Two
is-
signs put
to me,
up.
this is a no-brainer. Jack, you have a drawing with, or a figure, if you can put it up there with all the streets. No, these are rural residential, so these would be the ones that would be,
These could all be posted at 30 miles an hour. Now, some of these are already posted.
right,
And Nate's gonna look into the ones to see which are posted, so we could come up with an estimate to see what it would cost to post the remainder of them.
I actually believe Johnson coming south from
Yeah, that's
241st is
yeah,
posted.
I saw
Yeah,
it's posted, a lot of
Yeah.
these are posted.
Yeah.
My whole neighborhood's posted.
Yeah,
It's
so,
marked in here, but it's posted.
and I bring this up because, you know, for the minimal cost it does to put up speed limit signs, to keep traffic calmer in these neighborhoods, I think that's what we should be doing. I mean, when new developments come in, do we require speed limit signs?
We do not, unless it's part of the developer's agreement.
Okay. And that's something we should do
Yeah.
too, because that's their cost when new development comes in, but personally, and we had this discussion a year ago, 2 years ago, when we talked about,
Edmar.
Edmar.
Hmm,
and
yep.
About the roads around Coon Lake.
Yep.
That, which are even
Narrower.
more narrower and more tight, and even at 30 miles an hour, those are fast.
Dangerous.
You go 30 miles an hour on my street, you're in trouble, so it's, so, my opinion is we should have at least a plan to get all our residential streets posted, so. And I don't like the cities that put the sign at the city border saying all streets are 30 miles an hour, let's post it. I think that defeats the purpose of trying to get people to slow down, because no one remembers that, so. Like you said, people drive to the speed, but if you see a sign, you know,
Yeah.
people will slow down. So.
And that statement is a statement that comes from MnDOT. People drive based on the road alignment and the road conditions. If the road is straight and dry,
Yeah, it's just, it's a drag strip.
they're gonna drive faster than if there's curves in it, if there's snow on it, or if it's raining, so.
Well, even like Suzanne, your development's got those really long streets,
Mm-hmm.
and
Yeah, they're posted.
they're posted, but traffic can get going on those sometimes, so. I remember when that first got developed, we had issues with speeding in that neighborhood too.
Yes, those motorcycles like to go vroom, show off.
All right, anything else on this? Jack, you have enough?
I have enough, thank you.
All right, we're to the bottom of our agenda.
Make a motion to adjourn?
Second.
Motion made and second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any Opposed? Motion passes. Our meeting's adjourned. Thank you, everyone. Have a good night.